This this is our May edition, and we're going to be together today from 9 a.m. until 10:30. Today we have guests Kevin Allison from the Marion County Soil and Water Conservation District, as well as Mary Wells with Pollinator Partnership. Hi, Mary. And then I'm going to be sharing briefly about the SARE grant that I'm involved in. So I am going to let Kevin have the stage here. So he's going to be talking about technical topics.
Thank you, Megan. Welcome, everybody. Today, we are going to be focusing on mulching. So yeah, high tunnels is sometimes what brings folks in, but I think one of like the, not easiest, but like most like potent, most like productive practice that we can help growers also look at is mulching. So I'm going to share a couple of new resources that we've got. I'm going to show them, show you where to find them. And then we'll also, we'll go through all those tools, some pictures just to see what some of the mulching looks like on farms. And I'd welcome any feedback or any comments, questions at any time. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give it a second for that to pop up. So I know it's going to be a little laggy. But where I'm taking you to is the Field Office Technical Guide for the NRCS. So I think it's helpful to bookmark this if you're an SWCD. I know like NRCS like probably goes there a lot, but yeah, it's just kind of a helpful thing to have. So under section 4, practice standards and supporting documents, you can scroll down to conservation practice standards and support documents, go down to mulching, click on mulching, and then a few files pop up. So we now have this 484, which is the NRCS code for the mulching practice. Mulching for small farms and gardens. So you can download that, and it's a PDF with great baseline and even more than baseline information, just like some really good information about nuances around mulching. So that's going to be like a great file that we can just give people and support this practice. Also, if you scroll way down, I think there's other ways of going about this, but there's also like an ecological science tools tab, and that is where the NRCS is putting a lot of their calculators and tools. So you can see here that we've got the Indiana Mulching Tool Small Farms and Gardens file. So that is an Excel file that you can download, you can share with a grower, and we'll be going over that in detail in just a bit. But basically, it allows you to plan mulching on a farm. It could be used as what NRCS calls an implementation requirement. So if you don't have to be in a program to use it, it works great without it. But if you are in an equip program or federal program, like this helps provide that documentation and also planning to help get that done. So we'll show you that in detail as well. I did want to let you know that on our website, and by our I mean the Marion County Soil and Water Conservation District website, if you go to Soil Health Guide and then or Soil Health and then Soil Health Guide, there's a list of resources. I know I've showed you this many times, but I think it doesn't hurt to come back to it. But pretty much down here at mulching, you're going to see, mulching for small farms, and that's just a direct link to the FOTG. So that's the PDF, and then there's the mulching tool, which is the Excel file. Also the same, that is just links to the FOTG. So that's a place that a grower might be able to more easily find it if need be. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing in just a sec and then share again. That will be the story here. Bear with. Okay. So let's say you grab that PDF. This is what you're going to find. Going to give it one more second just in case it's taking a little bit longer to load up for you. So big props to Urban Soil Health Team, to Ellie, to Casey, all their crew for and Kara, First Snyder, NRCS for really driving this practice forward. So, and actually making this document. So I was pretty busy with like making the tool and the Excel thing, and they they just did like an awesome job on this. So this is a really cool document to have. So yeah, practice 484, and it basically goes through the purpose. It goes through just kind of all on the left side. It talks about mulches applied to small farms. It talks about soil health too. A lot of folks just like maybe mulch for like weed suppression. But yeah, it also talks about, you're adding organic matter to the soil in most cases if you're adding like an organic mulch. There are different types of mulch though, natural versus synthetic. And of course, within natural mulches, there's tons, which we'll talk about, like wood chips and leaf compost and shredded leaves and straw, hay, paper, all the things. And then there's also synthetic mulch, which I won't be talking about too much today, but pretty much that's comes down to like things like landscape fabric and just like black plastic mulch or black plastic that you would essentially lay over your bed during almost the entire growing season of the crop. It does really good for weed suppression. However, like sometimes, sometimes there's some management nuances with that too. So probably most in particular, just like, it's not an organic matter input. So you might actually be losing organic matter through the season if it gets really hot and dry. So keeping that irrigated underneath the black plastic is pretty important. So it's a kind of farming that I haven't personally done, but it's definitely out there. So yeah, synthetic mulch is a thing. However, and I don't want to speak too much on programs, but I know in like this year, the NRCS programs, Indiana decided to not prioritize plastic mulch in the programs, but to rather just put more of a priority on those natural mulches through the programs. Okay, and I'm going to follow this up with a little slideshow so you can kind of like see this in bigger format, but and we'll go through each of these considerations as well. But yeah, location, like you can mulch the garden bed, you can mulch the walkways, you can mulch native plantings. We'll talk about that more. C to N ratios. So this has a table with C to N ratios. So just like just like a compost pile, like when growers are thinking like putting a mix of greens and browns, and then mix them up in your compost, you're kind of doing that as well with mulch, except you're not really mixing them up. It's just kind of layering it on the soil surface. So if you've got like something very brown, like rye straw, for example, or straw, in general, it's going to have like a higher carbon to nitrogen ratio, and it will stick around longer. Like that straw might be there for almost the entirety of the season. I find that like cereal rye, like crimped cereal rye, almost last into fall. Like when I'm like looking at it in September, like most of it's broken down, but there's a little bit left. However, like something like hairy vetch, like a legume like hairy vetch, or maybe even like alfalfa hay, for example, it can decompose a lot quicker. Like I just like weed waxed some hairy vetch the other day, tarped it for like a week, and like pulled the tarp off and the hairy vetch was gone. Like there's no mulch left. It just was very high nitrogen, so the microbes were able to decompose it really, really quickly. So I'm talking about cover crops here, but cover crops can be a mulch. But the same consideration goes for just like the timeliness of breakdown between high carbon material and not. It's like a wood chip. What do you think that would be, right? Very brown, very carbon rich. It's going to take a little bit to break down. Temperature is another consideration. So, and I think this is big. This is probably super important. And I remember hearing Steve Groff out in Pennsylvania, like talking about his tomatoes. And this was like a few years ago, so maybe his situation has changed. But like when he found when he was mulching with straw or like a light colored straw, the tomatoes were slower to grow and took longer to produce. And by that I mean like they started producing later in the season. And he attributed that to temperature, just having like just cooler temperatures, which is usually good for soil health. We don't want temperatures going up into 100 degrees and burning all our microbes out. But there's also like a balance. We do like in the spring, like a lot of growers find that it is helpful to get their soils to warm up a little bit. If you look at like Purdue extension documents on like when to plant carrots or when to plant lettuce, they actually go by temperature. So there's some documents that say, plant from March 15th to April, whatever. However, like some of their documents say, plant carrots when the temperature is like a certain degrees Fahrenheit. So obviously temperature has an effect on like germination, and it has effect on like how fast something might grow. So Steve Groff at Pennsylvania, I hate to put words in his mouth, but I did hear him say this. So yes, I'm not, but like he was finding that his yield was like just as good with those strawed tomatoes. It's just that they were coming later. So yeah, that's kind of like a consideration, right? So maybe like putting like a darker mulch like around the base of the tomato plants to kind of speed up that temperature increase. So yeah, temperature is the thing, and we might talk about that a little bit more as we go through this too. How much to apply? Also got a lot of nuances. In general, though, like we're looking to like cover the bed, like almost like 100%, or not almost, but 100% cover, especially if we're really looking at like weed suppression and just like armoring the soil. Like a really thin layer of straw that you could see through and see the soil. Like I would expect that soil to get hot and to start crusting and to maybe even lose soil health, unless it's really like completely covered and armored. So I'll talk a little bit more about like the thickness and as we move through the cover, as we get to the mulching tool. I think that's probably a better place to talk about it. But yeah, just wanted to put that in as a consideration. So the next page, yeah, it talks about planting the mulch. Again, we'll go through that in greater detail in a bit, but yeah, I'll save that one. It can be better and it can be worse for a grower. And yeah, like I think like worse in the sense that it might take more time. So like when you till a bed, like you till it, like that soil is soft. And it's very easy to get a planter through, like one of those one row planters, like an earthway seeder or a jang. If you have like a whole lot of like straw mulch on the surface, like the earthway seeder is not going to go through there, right? So it's just like those kind of considerations are really, really important. And that kind of leads into like crop compatibility. So if we were seeding like carrots or lettuce, like probably a whole lot of straw on the bed is not the way to go. However, if it's like a long season crop like tomatoes or peppers, yeah, maybe like that, yeah, straw would be a good option because it's that's gonna stay on the bed. It's not gonna decompose very fast, and you can transplant into straw pretty easily. Well, I say pretty easily. It still takes longer than if it was like tilled, right? But then I think that's part of our jobs too, is to like talk to growers about like where your labor is at. Like so, like this bed, like you see that kale right there. There's kale planted into like straw and newspaper. That bed in particular didn't need to really be needed for the rest of the season. Whereas if we were tilling and planting that kale, then they would have to come through again and again and scout for weeds and maybe use a stirrup hoe or some kind of hoe to like keep on weeding. So yeah, or they could have put up black plastic on that kale, and then like put holes in the black plastic at their kale spacing and then transplant it in. So that's doable. It takes a bit more time, and you don't get the organic matter, but it's also going to like suppress weeds for the season. So as you can see, like lots of nuances. I think just as we get more experience, we'll be able to help growers more with this. I'm going to scroll down. There's like a really cool table that they put together, just with like different kinds of mulches, wood chips, newsprint, and it just like it gives great considerations about like potential depths, pros, cons, and comments. So I'd highly encourage you to take a look at those. I'll probably talk about these as we go through this. And then sourcing, which we'll get to, and costs, which we'll get to a little bit later. So I'm going to stop sharing. Any questions thus far? Share. Okay. I don't know how many of you went to like the NR's like urban trainings that we did. Oh my gosh, time is flying. Is it last year or the year before? But at any rate, like we used part of this document to do that training. I just kind of condensed it for the purposes of today, just to like show some pictures and some considerations. But I believe that whole mulching training is available on the Urban Soil Health Box account, where you can get other resources as well. Okay, so why mulch, right? I think, yeah, it's kind of like an obvious one, right? Like maximize soil cover. Like during this season, in vegetable production, it's really easy to find bare soil. So just using mulches to keep that covered. And in doing so, you're also like helping minimize disturbance, because if there's no weeds, there's not as big as reason to till. So that's yeah, a great tool for us. Pop up, sorry. Okay, so why mulch from a farmer perspective? It can reduce weeding time and pressure sometimes, right? Like it does change weeding. I think it can reduce it, like if done well. Like you get the right mulches on, like thick enough, and you can really stop weeds from coming up. But if you do, for example, have like a very weedy garden, and you just throw some straw on top and walk away, like those weeds are going to pop through that straw. And then it's going to be a little bit tricky to weed, right? You're going to, instead of using like a hoe to like walk through your rows and like get everything out, a hoe is not necessarily going to like be able to get through the straw. So you might be left with like a soil knife, which at scale, like at a small scale, like great, that's fine. But if you're talking like a bigger farm, market farm, then that might be a little tricky. Conserve moisture, I think that's huge. Like they don't turn my garden water on until like beginning of May. And I grow a lot of early spring crops. So I need to trap all the water I can get. And I do that by keeping the soil covered with mulches. As soon as we take those mulch off and expose the bare soil, I'm going to start losing moisture, especially in that top inch, where I really need like spinach seeds to stay moist before like throughout their germination. So yeah, that's really key in just like trapping and preserving that moisture. Impact on soil health, of course, like when we're feeding organic material on, like putting it on the bed, eventually soil life is going to take that in and start decomposing it and turning it into organic matter and available nutrients. So yeah, just the impact on soil health is big too. And then cleaner produce. There's some folks that like sell to there's some folks that like really pride themselves on their clean produce, and I think some of their contracts, even like the contracts they've gotten from buyers for the produce, have been result, they say, as because of like their clean produce. So they're growing like pumpkins on straw or pumpkins on cereal rye, where there's not a lot of doesn't have as much soil contact, so there's not as much blemishes or even like fungal like disease pressure. Okay, so there's lots of reasons to mulch, but why not mulch? Yeah, I think some of these are big: sourcing and cost. Well, I guess we'll start with residue and time management. Yeah, like some of the gardeners and farmers that aren't used to having a bunch of mulch on their bed, like we'll see it as an obstacle. Like it's hard to plan into. Like, what do I do with it after I'm done? Like a lot of questions, but yeah, I think it's we can help folks kind of learn how to manage that residue. And we'll get to that too. I'm going to jump ahead to sourcing and cost. Actually, no, I'm not. We'll do that later. Weed seeds and slugs. Yeah, that's real. So yeah, I've been watching this. Is it Charles Dowden, the English guy over in Great Britain, that has like a no-till and no-dig YouTube channel? It's really good. But he and his followers haven't really used cover crops too much. They're afraid of slugs. They don't use straw too much. They're afraid of slugs. So that's something I think we need to regroup on for sure and keep talking about. While we do increase beneficial insects and all the great things in these like soil health gardens, there's also just a lot of mulch and a lot of like hiding places for slugs. It's like it creates the environment. So it creates a habitat for them to kind of thrive in. So scouting is huge. I don't know enough about it, so I'm not going to get into it, but like there's beer traps where you put in like cups of things and there's products. I haven't used much products for slugs, but I think it's probably, yeah, like it's of interest enough that we should look into it. Just like, yeah, what's out there? What are people using for slugs? I just saw like, I think it was Oregon State that came out with a really cool document about, or a webpage about making dough, not actual bread, but just like the bread dough, and then putting it in the garden in a spot, and then I guess it just attracts all the slugs to it. Somebody mentioned to me, yeah, why would they want to eat vegetables? We're just like humans, right? We just want bread. Let's just eat all the bread, right? First. So I guess that's the route they go. And then storage space. That's big. Yeah, like it's sometimes very beneficial to buy in bulk. Like, for example, in Indianapolis, you can get a straw bale for like $12 or $10 from a store. Or you can get on like Craigslist or Facebook, or or talk to farmers and see if you can find a good source that are a cheaper source. And usually that involves it being brought in on a truck in like minimum of like 20-25 bales. And then it brings the cost down to like $6 or $7 a bale. But you've got to have a place to store it. So a lot of the small farms out in the country, like I don't think that's going to be as big of a problem. But you get like some of the backyards and some of these urban farms that don't have, or a community garden without a shed like mine. It gets a little bit tricky because there's just not a lot of storage space. Okay, moving on. So how can we help growers? Really like just talking about the benefits of mulch, the soil health, the weed suppression, the water conservation. We can talk about the types of mulch in various systems and then the amount of mulch to apply. And those are just 3 things. I'm sure there's more that we can talk about with growers in terms of mulching. Overall considerations. So this is kind of a repeat of the document, which is why I really like that document that we created, because it just is all there in just a few pages. So yeah, just seed-in ratios, temperature, sourcing, etc. So I'm going to kind of go a little quickly through this because we've already seen it, but the differences in carbon to nitrogen ratios of our mulches, the location. So you can see on like the left, like there's straw with garlic in a planting bed. That's a pretty common combination. That second picture is Butler University putting down in their walkways. They're actually using like newsprint roll paper and then straw on top. I would advise anybody trying this to have another person ready with like a hose, just to like give a light sprinkle to that paper as the person's unrolling it, because it can blow away. It can blow away really easy. So getting a little damp, a little moist will help it stick to the soil. And then like the third picture, beds and paths, just differences in mulching. The fourth picture is like a native planting or a wildlife planting area. With like native trees and shrubs. So this person used like leaf compost, and then in their walkways or outside that area, they were using more wood chips. So lots of different options. Temperature. We talked about this, but like just to reiterate, dark usually heats up the soil and light usually cools down the soil. So like I could see like in early spring or in spring right now, like using a darker compost with carrots to warm the soil up. But then I could also see like in late summer when it's like really hot, I could see like the straw on top of like a tomato bed, really keeping like the soil protected and a little bit cooler, so it doesn't just like get way too hot. Temperature, this, does anybody know what this is? That is cereal rye that had been tarped and then crimped, tarped, untarped, and then sweet potatoes planted into it. This is actually from my garden, and when I got to reading about sweet potatoes, just like from Purdue's documents or farmer documents, books, etc., and they're all like, sweet potatoes need warm soils. So right here, I've got like a very cool environment that cereal rye is doing a great job of like protecting, cooling, keeping the soil like regulated. But in order to warm the soil up a little bit, I thought it might be a good idea to put like a 1 or 2 foot wide strip of darker leaf compost or leaf mulch down the planting strip, just to maybe keep, maybe warm it up. So I think like testing temperatures like sometime would be really cool, just to see like the differences in what we're getting. Okay, planting into mulch. So like you can see, look at that picture on the left. That's like at Union Bankers, I believe, in Indianapolis. If that was a tilled field, like it would be fairly easy for them to go through and like plant very quickly. However, like with all that mulch, it's going to take them more time. And then the growers actually, they complain's not the word, but like they voiced their concern. However, like they also liked the fact that it was like, the soil's looking really good underneath, and like they didn't have to do as much weeding as well. So it's just that trade-off, right? Okay, so a little bit more about planting and the mulch and considerations, like especially on the left there. That is the earthway cedar. Kind of zoomed in, you can see the shoe, I guess, cutting through whatever it's called, cutting through the soil, making a furrow, and drops the seed down, and that chain actually drags the soil over it, or the compost over it. So that is fairly easy to do in a tilled soil. It's fairly easy to do in like compost. So like if somebody were to put like 2 inches of like very fine, nice compost on top, that will also do the trick. However, like straw or even like really thick leaf, like chunky leaves, even a 2-year leaf that's been shredded. Yeah, 2-year shredded leaves, like it still might be chunky enough that it's difficult to get that cedar through. So most folks that are using that are tending towards like a finer compost. And I think there's like some balance there. There's like a continuum between what's fine enough and what's too chunky. But yeah, I think that's just goes with like experience. But in general, I would favor, like, if you're going to be using one of these tools, it is easier to have it more composting, more decomposed, and ready to drive a planter through. Okay. Okay, so straw and hay. Yeah, I'm not sure what else I need to say about that, other than that straw is high carbon, hay is like low, like a lower carbon to nitrogen ratio. It's probably got more proteins in it. It's gonna like maybe yeah, your soil life might like hay even more, just it's gonna be more digestible. Yeah, I think there's probably cons. Yeah, it says weed seeds down there, right? Like, yeah, for sure, that's a con. There is sometimes, depending on how the straw is harvested. So straw is like wheat or barley, and they harvest the grain, and then they bale up what's left. So like the stems, and then you get straw. However, like depending on how that is baled, and the timing and all the other things, like it can have weed seeds in it. So then you're basically spreading straw over your garden that's got a bunch of weed seeds in it. Same thing with hay. Hay's like almost like a pasture mix. So you've got like legumes and all the things, seeds, timothy, orchard grass. So depending on when they cut it and what cutting it is, that can also have a lot of weed seeds. So I've taken bales and like busted them open on white pieces of paper, just to, like kind of look around. Like I know that's tricky to do at a store if you're thinking to buy one. But yeah, just like I've tried to find like a good supplier, like a good store, and stick with it if it is in one. Because in general, maybe that farmer that's supplying the bales is taking time to really think that through. And then also like herbicide. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but there are some herbicides like applied to like wheat and maybe even like hayfields. So just asking the store or asking yeah, doing the due diligence of asking the source, like, what was it sprayed, and what was it sprayed with, like that might help you make a decision on if that's the right product for you or not. I'm gonna check the chat real quick. Slugs. Cool. We'll go through chat in a bit. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure I need to say anything there other than like, yeah, like you're doing a lot of upfront labor with this straw, and like, for example, like this is like newspaper and straw. So yeah, like maybe more for a long season crop, like not necessarily a spinach seed, right, that you're going to be harvesting in 30 days. Yeah, in the fall, like I've known some people like burn their mulch. Like when I mentioned like what do they do with the residue? Like if they're like some people like don't have the time to break it all off and manage that. So like they think like, hey, should I just burn it? You're losing a lot of like carbon and everything, right? Like maybe that's like the right thing for the practicality of your system. But I think like I'm not sure if it's in our standards, but I don't think we should, yeah, be encouraging people to just burn up their carbon. So yeah, like helping folks think like how to do that. Like maybe it's raking the mulch into the pathways and just using it as pathway mulch, so you can get like a clean growing bed, so you can actually seed like your direct seeded crops. Or maybe it's just really encourage them to take the time to like compost that straw. Yeah, lots of considerations there as well. Yeah, I think I was just going to get into some pictures. just to kind of chat about. But like this is Frith Farm out in Maine. They do a lot of cover crops. They do a lot of leaf mulch, leaf compost, bark vines, like lots of different kinds of mulch. I think this picture, if I can judge it correctly, it was probably one of their fields where they didn't get a cover crop planted. So it may have been like carrots last fall that went really late, like into October, and they were just in Maine. It's hard to plant a cover crop, a successful cover crop in October. It's already cold. So they probably just put straw across the whole bed. And in the spring, they, I see, rake the straw into the walkways, put a little like leaf compost on top of the beds, and then that's their setup. So that straw was probably protecting the beds over the winter as well. An Ad Farmers Collective, a small farm here in Indianapolis, they do the same thing with shredded leaves. After production's over in the winter, they'll put like leaf compost or leaf shredded leaves on top of all the beds. And in the spring, when they need to direct seed it, if that leaf mulch is broken down enough to where they can get their seeders pot plants, transplant through, again, planting considerations. But if they can get it through that, then they'll just leave it and plant right into it. But if it's too chunky, then that rake off into the path. Okay, paper and newsprint, like get a lot of questions like how do you start a garden? And I should have put the link in the chat, but like I'm not going to try that. I think it would mess up my system here. But Jesse Frost, No-Till Growers, did an awesome video or two on like how the pros start a garden. I think that's what he called it, how the pros start a garden. So he talked about like tilling and compost and building your beds and then moving towards no-till, etc. However, like in the urban environment, sometimes when you till in the soil, you're going to hit like a foundation or a sidewalk or a brick. It's just, you're going to tear up your tiller or your hoe or your body really, really quickly. So, and there might be lead, like there's considerations there. So, or other contaminations. So in general, like building up is sometimes what happens in the urban environment. So this is where like paper, newsprint, and cardboard can really be helpful in terms of like lasagna gardening. I know that Jesse Frost in that video like discussed like putting like a layer of cardboard down and then like 6 inches of like really good compost to get a lasagna garden started. If you don't have really good compost, like I don't think we do here in Indianapolis, then it might be something else. It might just be like leaves and shredded leaves and straw and as much decent compost as you can get. However, and then like layers of cardboard, like a layer of cardboard at the bottom. However, like we just got to realize that like if you had great compost, you could plant right into it right away, get started that first season. But if you've got all this chunky mix of straw and like stuff, it's going to take a while to actually break down and become manageable. Manageable is not the right word. It's going to take a while to break down and become fertile, and like where there's actually like nutrient cycling, like getting, that's a lot of carbon. Like so, if you've got like a plant, like a broccoli plant or a kale that really needs a lot of nitrogen, and you plant it right into there, it's not gonna get the nitrogen it needs until that starts breaking down and becoming more soil-like. I always like tell the growers here if they're gonna do this, like in the fall, do it in the summer if you can, and then in the fall, put like a legume cover crop on just to help like feed nitrogen into that system to help break down that mulch. So I could see like field peas or hairy vetch on top of that bed on the bottom right in the fall, just to, if it takes in that, yeah, maybe it's just like the best layer of compost that you've got right on top, right? Just so you can get like a good, decent seed bed and decent germination. Okay. Now into compost. Okay, I think I'm doing, not sure I'm doing on time. I think I'm doing okay. But compost, like again, like high quality, like what you're seeing there, it looks chunky to me. Like I think that's from my garden. Like I see like chunks, I see straw chunks. Like that's probably not the best picture for this slide, because when I'm thinking like compost, I'm thinking like the growers that actually buy like high quality compost and put them on their beds. It can be expensive. You can make it yourself. Like I'm in the process of taking my big leaf pile and some of it was chunky, and I'll use that this year as like almost like a mulching compost around like tomatoes and things. But hopefully next year it'll be more broken down as I flip the pile. It'll break down more and become a more fine compost that I can like use for more seeding crops that are seeded. So yeah, that's Daniel May's farm. Looks beautiful. That's spinach, straw on the walkways as a mulch, compost in the beds. So he's like doing 1 to 2 inches of leaf compost. I will say that like that looks fine. And if you were to touch that top layer of compost, it would be dry if he hasn't irrigated. So the soil like 2 inches down is probably moist and nice. So once those roots get in there, you're good to go. You probably don't even need to irrigate very much. However, like if you're seeding right into compost and it's dry and it's not raining, like that compost will get dry and your seeds will dry out. So the folks that are doing this like deep compost kind of thing and seeding into it, we definitely have irrigation to help help those spinach get up and going. And if they were transplanting into this, Daniel Mays and myself, we'd probably recommend like trying to get that transplant, the bottom of the transplant, at least in the soil a little bit. Probably the more in the soil, the better, as opposed to just up in that mulch. And the same thing, it's just like drying out too fast. So there's nothing like that native soil moisture to help a crop. It's just what it looks like from the top. And leaves. I think like yeah, like sometimes people put leaves on, like whole leaves, but I think that like water sometimes can't infiltrate very well through them, so that's a consideration. But shredded leaves, usually the water does get through there pretty easily. Again, not seedable per se, as easy as finer compost, but definitely it's something that could be used as a mulch, like around a leek or even like onions, and something that's like more transplanted. Wood chips. So great for walkways. Down in Kentucky, they don't really use them as much in walkways because like it rains a lot more and it floats they find that it kind of floats the wood chips up and like gets onto their beds where they don't want it because it's such a high carbon nitrogen ratio, and it can kind of start interfering with the nitrogen balance in their for their crops. However, like in Indiana, like not sure that's a consideration too much. I have seen them float a little bit, but there are folks using wood chips pretty proficiently in their pathways. And yeah, like you could like compost them, like wood chips. You could compost those down into a finer, yeah, just 4 years later, 3 years later, they might, they're probably broken down enough that they could be used on the planting bed. And people do use them on planting beds. I'm not saying you can't do that, but just like be very considerate about not like incorporating them, not letting them fall into transplant holes, etc., because like that is a heavy carbon piece of wood, and it's gonna tie up nitrogen. And then sourcing, like I think I touched on sourcing like here and there. Megan, if you've got like, or yeah, and Megan and I were just talking about sourcing. It's tricky. Ask about herbicide, ask about, like look for look for seeds. I think like it'd be awesome if we could, if we had like a few farmers in Indiana that were like making like really good like hay intentionally for like mulching on small farms, like give us a blend of like like no weeds, no herbicides, like give us a good blend of like grass and legumes. Yeah, I think there's possibilities there, but currently it's kind of like the Wild West. And like if you look at like California and you type in like registered approved compost, not approved, like what's the word, composting facilities that are accredited, that have done like that submit their paperwork and like basically say they turn their pile this many times, etc. There's like 50 or 60 in California, and there's like 2 in Indiana. So I know Megan's been working on the SARE grant with some farmers to look at like compost sourcing and just like making compost. So yeah, I think the more people and more good composters we've gotten in Indiana, I think that's going to help us in the long run. Okay, yeah, just diversified farms, diversified mulch, right? There's like old cover crops and walkways and leaf compost on the beds with the cover crop planted into it. This is Dan Perkins, picture Dan Perkins' farm where he's actually making the like making his mulch beds, like deep compost beds. So he's actually like tilled or plowed out walkways there, and he's going to fill those with wood chips. This is like his transition into like no-till, right? So he's plowing out the walkways, and then he's going to put wood chips on, and then put compost on the top, and it's gonna be a system. And then just where to put this stuff, like that's what a compost pile might look like for a farm the size of Dan Perkins is. It's not even bigger than that. It actually is. It's got like big rows of it. But yeah, just like sometimes in the urban farms, you can see this behind like their wash pack, and it's got weeds growing out of it because they don't have a tractor to turn it. So just thinking through. Oh my, Megan, yeah. You just told me about 40 minutes. That was fast or slow. I don't know. So yeah, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop sharing because I know I haven't even got to the calculator. Maybe you can tell me how much like time, if it's 0, that's okay. But I do want to show you like the calculator if I can have like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I'd love to see 10 minutes on the calculator if you can get it in 10 minutes.
Yep. All right, cool. Sorry about that. That got away from me. There's a lot of considerations on it. So I'm going to go ahead and share. So yeah, download this tool. I think I can do this pretty quickly because unlike like nutrient management, and it's a little bit easier, which is great. So you've got this tool. It's an Excel tool. It's got like 5 tabs on the bottom. And the first tab is the mulching calculator. So this is basically the mulching like implementation requirement. So you can put like Kevin Allison's garden, right? Like Marion County. This top part is just for it's helpful for like NRCS planners. So it's going to end up telling you like what the total area is of land that is receiving mulch in 1 year. And then it's also going to tell you like the plan number. So currently in Indiana, like our scenarios for programs are based on 1,000 square feet. So it's a certain amount of payment that a farmer could get for 1,000 square feet of mulch applied. So that's going to help the planner like figure out what that or automatically calculate what that number is. So I'm going to go down to the next table down here, and basically what this is your table for applying mulch. So each line item could be like could be a mulch application. You can also combine them because it can get really tricky to like break down every single bed. But for example, let's just do one bed. It's like my bed is A1, and that is my beet bed. It's currently in beets. So I know that I have, it's got a little drop down here, and you can say compost in cubic yards or compost in cubic feet, depending on what you think in. But it's basically just that's what's gonna end up telling you like how much yards that you need for that, or how much cubic feet you need for that certain area. I usually pick cubic yards. That bed is 70 square feet. I'm looking at like 1 inch of compost on that bed to seed my beets into, because I want that like soil to be covered. It was actually oats and peas last fall, but they didn't give me enough coverage to actually protect the bed, so I'm putting on 1 inch. So you can see I've got 2 cubic yards. After that bed is done in the fall, I'm going to plant a cover crop. And I know that compost is going to decompose by then, so I'm going to put another inch on, or even like a ½ inch in order to get my cover crop seeded. So there's 2 mulching applications on 1 bed. And then in 2025, A1 is actually going to be in tomatoes. So I'm actually going to use some straw on that for 70 square feet. And I'm going to put 2 inches of straw on. So one thing that's, it tells you in the literature on the mulching document, but if it's 6 inches, if you put 3 inches of straw, it ends up being 1 inch final depth. So this is actually the final depth of straw. So if I put on, to get 2 inches of final depth, I would actually be putting on 6 inches of straw. And then that's going to tell me that I need 1 bales to get that done. And then in the fall, on that bed A1, I'm going to come back and I'm going to put another round of compost on because I'm going to be seeding a cover crop. Maybe that straw is still sticking around, so I could just use the straw and put it back on the bed. Remove the straw, plant a cover crop, and put the straw back after my tomatoes. But if the bed's bare at all, I really want to get it covered and armored. So it might be a compost application. So what's that mean in terms of in programs? Just a note, like the NRCS would not pay for multiple applications, incentivize multiple applications on 1 area in 1 year. And by that I basically mean that like for this bed A1, you can see there's been 2 mulching applications in 1 year. So we're only going to count 1 of those as the contract item. And then the next year, we're only going to count 1 of those as the contract item. So when you go up to the top and you pick, okay, my year for 2024, my contract for 2025 and 26, it's going to automatically pull in the total area that has had mulch applied to it. Not the total like area that's been mulched, or it doesn't count like double count. It doesn't double count areas, right? So it's just 70 square feet. So 70 square feet and 70 square feet in 2025. So it's going to actually round up to 1,000 square feet. So that's one number. So yeah, then the district conservationists could say, okay, this is one plan number for this contract. You can see that if I were to change this to like 1,500 square feet of leaf mulch or of compost, and then I go up to the top, it's actually going to pull in two numbers. Okay, and then yeah, so you could like I should have left myself more time, I apologize, but like there's lots of different ways to do this, right? Like you could say like I could call this all plot A beds, right? Or plot A walkways. And then in my walkways, I'm putting straw. In my beds, I'm putting those. In my walkways, I'm putting straw, and in the beds, I'm putting compost. So you can just kind of like look at your plan. I look at my like crop plan and just kind of figure out like where I need compost, or I'm deciding to put straw, and then you just fill this up. And then for the contract items, you would hit yes. So yeah, in general, that's how to use that. You can also go over to the right and say like notes. So for this, like I'm putting like compost for seeded crops, for example. And then this is just like straw mulch walkways. So there's a little place you can use for notes. If you go up above, you can actually put in cost per unit. So for each yard of compost, is say like $40. For my straw, it's like $10 a bale, for example. And then if you fill that out, you can go back to your table, and it's going to start giving you a material estimate. So now you know that it's very expensive to do this sometimes, unfortunately, but that's why it's cool that eQuip might be able to help. So after you get done filling out your table, you can go to material cost estimate. And you can go up to the data tab, and it tells you the instructions here. But pretty much, I'm not sure that's some windows here, the data tab, and hit refresh all, and it's not going to do anything. So you need to right click on the tab, unprotect sheet, and it says this in the instructions, and then you're going to hit refresh all, and it's going to automatically put on. It's going to automatically tell you like what the sums are. So for 2024, there was 4.7 yards needed of compost. In 2024, there was 0.6 bales needed for my walkways. So if you were to fill that up, this would tell you, like fill up that table, it would tell you in the grand scheme of things, like how much material and how much the cost might be throughout the years. And then you can, that's definitely not what the NRCS is paying. So you'd have to compare that to like NRCS payments per 1,000 square feet to get an idea of like what it might cover, if it makes sense for you. And then I know a lot of people like some people do and some people don't know how much like square feet are actually on their beds. So this little helpful area calculator, it's just this doesn't feed into anything, but it basically is just a way of saying, okay, I've got like 5 beds, they're 2.5 feet wide and 30 feet long. So now I know that I've got 375 square feet. So then you could take that back to the mulching calculator and utilize that. Or you could say like, I've got like 18 walkways, they're 1 foot wide by 25 feet long. So now I know that I've got 450 square feet of mulch. And you can also do the same with like the diameter for trees, for like fruit trees. So then I could go back to the mulching calculator and I could say like all walkways are 450 square feet, and I want a 2-inch depth because I think that's going to give me good coverage, and I need 7.5 bales for that. Okay, I think there's questions, and I think I'm way over, so I'm going to stop for a second and make sure that I'm checking with Megan. How are we doing? Is there any questions that we've got time for?
It looks like in the chat that Kara is doing a great job tag teaming and answering lots of these questions. But of course, you know, we've got time for you to offer some of your input as well.
Okay. Well, I trust Kara. Yeah, she's on it. Thank you, Kara.
Yeah, you're welcome. We're just talking about slugs.
Yeah.
So I think we left off, Kevin. There's still like some questions on how do you know you have slugs? You want to take that?
Anybody from Purdue here? Like I need to learn more. Like I've
I can take that one if you want.
Yeah, holes in the leaves. Yeah, please, Kara.
So Marion noted that she is wondering if she has slugs, but not for sure because they're nocturnal, which they are. But if you have mulch, what I found is just kind of go under your mulch, try to get like a slice of it, lift it up at the soil level. And if you have slugs, you will see them. And that's between the soil and where your mulch meets the soil. That's where they'll be hanging out during the daytime. And then the other thing to look for is kind of that slime trail that they are notorious for leaving. That's another good way of knowing if you have slugs. Sometimes you don't see it on the leaves. You can see it on the leaves, but if you don't see it on the leaves, look on the soil around the plant. And then, you know, when I talked about my slug problem last year, I mean, I split that being on a bunch of slugs. They were going up our head. It was bizarre. A couple things mulch back from your plants about 6 inches. You can sprinkle some diatomaceous earth around the base of those plants. That creates a physical barrier that harms them. They won't crawl over it because it like slices into their soft underbellies. You do have to reapply it after every rain because it loses those damaging properties once it gets wet. The beer traps, like Kevin mentioned, look that up. There's lots of great information. It is effective, but you have to, you know, put it out every night. And then worst case scenario, if you can't get rid of your slugs and you are in a soil health system where the balance should be there with beetles predating on them, then pull some of that mulch off, that high carbon mulch off, like the straw, and replace it with like a compost or a leaf mulch or something that isn't so high in carbon.
Hey, Kevin, you're still muted.
Thank you, Kevin. Cool. Yeah, I just okay. Yeah, I just want to show the Excel thing one more time because I don't think I did it quite justice. But yeah, like there's play with it, call it like let Kara and I know if we got questions. But like going bed by bed is awesome. Like I've done that like for my own garden, and you can like it starts to get long though, right? If you've got 40 beds, luckily I only have like 15. Yeah, you could go through and like really think about your crop, like carrots in the spring are getting compost. Tomatoes getting straw. In the fall, I think I need to put like a light layer of compost on top of like all my beds because it's by that time most of the mulch is broken down and I need soil protection. So yeah, like a couple ways to think through. Like I just like 30% of my growing beds are going to get compost. Like that's one way to think about it. Like that you could get at something quicker. Like especially if you did like 1 year of your system and you would saw like, okay, yeah, I'm using this much compost, like about half my beds are compost, my beds are straw. And then that next season, maybe it might make it easier for you to just say, okay, yeah, 30% of my growing beds are getting compost, like my onions and tomatoes are getting straw. There's 150 square feet of those. So I need 2.5 bales for my onions and tomatoes. My walkways, like I'm putting on the straw in 2024. Not in 2025, though I might need it, but in 2026, I'm probably going to need to mulch my walkways again. So just giving that another line item so I can, yeah, make sure everything's mulched. So there's some grouping, some splitting that you can do with this calculator. But in general, after you hit like yes and yes, for example, or yes, and then it's going to feed all those into your total square feet. That's the total square feet of mulch area, like of mulching applications. That's total square feet of land that has had mulch applied to it during that growing season at least once. And then we'll give you the plan numbers. And might be helpful for the equipment. Cool. And maybe an FYI, I did put like the compost calculator tab on here as well. You may have seen this in the nutrient management tool. It's there. It's actually got like more stuff about nutrients in that nutrient management tool. But you can use this to say, okay, I've got a 70 square foot bed and I'm putting on like 2 inches of compost, and it will tell me like how many cubic feet I need, how many cubic yards, all the things. Like if I had a 4-gallon bucket, it would tell me I need like 21.8 buckets to actually to cover that bed with 2 inches of compost. So that's just kind of a helpful tab to have to do some calculations. I think I'll stop. Sorry for going over. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Ush. Questions, I guess, let me know.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I really, really appreciate it. Next, we're going to have Mary Wells. Mary, did you want to share your screen?
Hi, everybody. Yes. Give me a minute. I have a few things I want to share, so I'll kind of bounce around through them. Put my video on. Hi, everybody. I just want to say thank you again for the opportunity to, give you a little bit more background on some opportunities and to get some help spreading the word about a program. And thank you for sharing my flyer. Just to begin, we'll start with that flyer. Is everybody able to see that and hear me okay? Widen that.
Yes to both. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we are trying to spread the word about our Habitat Heroes project. And in Indiana, as the Indiana Pollinator Partnership biologist, I have a kind of a focus area, which is why I'm here, on working with urban farmers, small farmers, new farmers, as well as specialty crop producers. So hoping that this network can help me spread the word. And if you have any candidates that might be interested, we're going to be kind of raising them up and sharing their success stories via this video project that will be also a series of blog posts. So this flyer takes you to our online questionnaire where they have the opportunity to share some information about their operation and some other information. So I will move on to a quick series of slides. So for those of you that I didn't get a chance to introduce myself to last week, my name is Mary Wells. I am the Indiana Partner Biologist with Pollinator Partnership. And just to let you know a little bit about Pollinator Partnership, our mission is to promote the health of pollinators, critical to food and ecosystems through conservation, education, and research. Oops. And then for my program, first and foremost, I'm really dialing in on getting those Habitat Hero videos created. So I'll be documenting footage and getting those all produced. Also interpreting various conservation practices and how they benefit pollinators. So that's another video project I'm working on separately. I also am working to find collaborators for in-person trainings for pollinator habitat. And I also can provide pollinator habitat technical assistance and conservation planning assistance for both partners and landowners, and just in general, actively engaging our target audience, again, the urban, small, new farmers and specialty crop producers. Just highlighting some of the areas that could be promoted within this network here with the Urban Updates group. So my Habitat Heroes project, this is just a little bit more dialed in information. We are looking for producers that have utilized Farm Bill programs or technical assistance through the Farm Bill. And then we're also focused on that historically underserved or special emphasis communities. This is kind of a link to the questionnaire I'll throw up here in that form, and I'll just briefly walk through the questionnaire. And then just to let you all know, if there's anyone that's interested in collaborating to host technical workshops and field days for the agricultural community, we have some great materials and some already content prepared for the purpose of hosting these events. If you're interested, let me know. And then again, if you could use my technical assistance and conservation planning assistance, don't hesitate to reach out if you're needing assistance while you're working with a landowner, or you would be interested in connecting me directly with landowners or producers. Do not hesitate. And then I just want to put a plug in. Pollinator Partnership has some excellent resources online. This link takes you to our what we call Guide to Guides, and that one's focused on the Midwest. We have a lot of amazing brochures. And then dialed into the Midwest, we have some garden cards. We have a native plant finder, and then we have these regional guides for selecting plants for pollinators. So most of Indiana would be under that Eastern Broadleaf Forest Guide. And then in the Northwest part of Indiana, that Prairie Parkland Guide would also apply. And then a few years ago, we worked with NRCS and a few other partners to put together these Indiana specialty crop informatics that kind of tie into some of the beneficial insects that would be the natural enemies and the beneficial insects that would be great for these specialty crops, and then some native plants that you can install adjacent to your operations to attract those beneficial insects. And I will say, going back to our Midwest guide, this isn't just pollinator partnership resources. We also link to other partner materials, including some amazing resources to the Marion County Soil and Water Conservation District. So, and just a reminder, everyone's life depends on pollinator health, and everyone can play a role in protecting them today. So don't hesitate to get in touch. Stop share. And if I have a minute or two more, I'll just show you the questionnaire, which I think I've already started to fill out. So go back. So yeah, just a 3-page questionnaire, very brief. I am in Indiana, obviously, but I also have a counterpart over in Ohio. So it just kind of asks them to dial into what kind of operations they have, what type of pollinator-friendly conservation practices they may have implemented. And that does include practices such as no-till, reduced-till, blooming cover crops, and then also invasive species control, as well as all types of restoration and wildlife habitat installation. It also asks them to kind of self-identify and what type of technical assistance or financial support they may have received, and then just some motivation behind those practices. And then we also have a series of opportunities for them to self-identify so that we can kind of help figure out if they meet some demographics that we're looking to reach. Does anyone have any questions for me based on that? I will put a link to the questionnaire and also a PDF of the flyer that you can download to share with landowners in the chat, if that's okay.
Thanks, Mary. That's a great strategy. And please, if anyone thinks of a question in the next 30 minutes, of course, throw it up in the chat. I am going to move on pretty briefly so that we can make sure that we get all of our shares in and just talk a little bit about my SARE grant here. So let me share my screen, and then I'll get through this pretty quickly, like I said. All right, can everybody see that? Oops, we'll move through here quickly. So like Kevin mentioned earlier, I identified a need for a high quality compost resource in the Southeast. Lots of the growers I was working with were telling me that they couldn't find good compost, or the compost that they could find was, often full of materials that were less than ideal, like small pieces of plastic, or were more wood chips than actual compost. And also, like Kevin mentioned, compost isn't really necessarily a particularly well-guarded word. So you could call something compost when it's not necessarily compost, and sell it as such. So I decided that I would try to come up with a possible solution. And in learning about soil microbiology and a lot of the soil health principles in Indiana, it was clear to me that we can heal our soils through the use of compost applications, because we're feeding microbes. And I thought, well, if we can feed microbes year round, can't we proliferate those microbes by giving them the right diet? And if we're giving them the right diet, couldn't we possibly create a microbe-rich environment for our growers by inoculating maybe not so great compost in a with really high quality compost? So that is my goal with this. And if you all are unfamiliar with SARE, North Central SARE, the highlighted area on this map, stands for Sustainability, Agriculture, Research, and Education. And they are a grant-making program that highlights project-based initiatives that can be shared with all farmers across the United States in a database. So it's really neat that they provide financial support to farmers and ag professionals who are interested in promoting sustainability across the U.S. They have a suite of grants that they open up to the public and to ag professionals throughout the year. One is created for professional development. One is for graduate students. One is their farmer rancher grant. One is for youth educators. One is for research and education. And one is the partnership grant. And I received the partnership grant. And in that partnership grant, I am working with 3 different farmers to utilize compost inoculations on their small farms through the use of a deep compost method. Now, these are all competitive grants, but maybe not as competitive as you think. So I just wanted to share with you all this really quick bit of information. So the research and education grant is funding $250,000 worth of projects. And the grad student, $20,000, the partnership grant, $50,000, the competitive professional development grant is $120,000. The farmer rancher grant is for $15,000 or $30,000 if it's more than one farm participating. And the youth educator grant is $6,000. And so a lot of these programs aren't really huge grants. We're not talking about $500,000 projects. They're really, really open for small projects that you can get some initial startup funding for all kinds of things like research, data analysis, materials, the time that it takes to do these grants. So it's really flexible and it's an interesting program. And we're going to dive more deeply into SARE grants for ag professionals and others back further on in the year when we're closer to those deadlines. So just to dive into my project a little bit, the problem was with lots of small scale farmers implementing soil health practices that utilize mulching, including the deep compost mulch method, how can these producers source high quality compost without financial strain or having it shipped from faraway locales? A lot of small scale growers utilize high quality compost as a mulch from such faraway places as Vermont, from Vermont Compost Company, or from Michigan, Morgan Composting. So my hypothesis was that fair to less than average compost is readily available locally at significantly lower costs. And if growers are to utilize this compost and inoculate it with a microbially complete compost, maybe it can improve local compost for greater fertility and soil health on the farm. So, you know, a question that might be asked is, what is the deep compost method? So farmers plant into the compost profile using just the top couple of inches as compost on top, both as a mulch and a way to increase soil health. So this minimizes disturbance, it maximizes soil cover, and it maximizes soil biodiversity. We're not tilling compost into the soil. Instead, it's just a layer of a couple of inches on top. And this collaborates with NRCS's practice 484 mulching, which Kevin was talking about. And so essentially what we're talking about is 1 cubic yard of compost covering about 125 cubic feet, which in this instance would be 1 50-foot bed that's about 30 inches wide and 4 inches deep. So a cubic yard is about $38 to $55, depending on your local source. But Vermont compost for 2 cubic yards, that's $900. So, and that doesn't include shipping costs. So if we're talking about utilizing a deep compost method on our beds, we're talking about putting compost in the spring when those are traditionally very financially light times for our farmers. That's an investment of what? $10,000, $12,000 for any sort of market-sized farm. And so we want to decrease those costs, despite the fact that this is really good compost. So what I'm doing is working with 3 small-scale farmers in the Southeast who utilize deep compost. Heidi Potter from Summer Solstice Farms, she's in Jefferson County. Sarah Finney at Finney Family Farm in Switzerland County, and Amy Serberg from Berry Goods Farm in Hancock County. And then I'm also working with one microbially complete compost purveyor to utilize microbial assessments for soil health and to provide the inoculant compost. So that's Jason Gerhardt from Integrated Elements. For those of you who are fans of the Urban Updates calls, you may recall that he was talking about compost production in our January Urban Updates call. So essentially what we're just going to do is a side-by-side comparison between the local compost and then the inoculated compost over 2 years. And so our goal is to prove that through inoculation, our growers can improve the quality of the locally available compost. So it's going to increase soil health in the long term. It's going to decrease the financial inputs early in the season. And we're going to decrease our carbon footprints because we're not going to be shipping compost across the United States. Instead, we're just going to be utilizing locally sourced compost and increasing the availability of nutrients without increased inputs. So that will also hopefully be a longer term soil health practice. And we're going to measure our success through testing of soil macro and micronutrients via lab analysis 3 times a year. So pre-planting, mid-season, and post-harvest. Then we're going to be testing the soil microbiology 3 times a year at the same time. Through that microbial analysis. We're going to be relying on farmer feedback. What are they seeing? What kind of frustrations do they have? Are they noticing more weed pressure or pest pressure? Are they noticing more drought tolerance? Are they having to water more? And then we're going to repeat it in the second year, except we're going to flip-flop those inoculated beds to compare the second year sustainability of nutrient availability versus the new application. And so the final results are due in April of 2026. They're going to include a written summation with qualitative and quantitative analysis. Our results are going to be available via the SARE website, and most likely I'll be sharing this at conferences once the project is finalized. So does anyone have any questions for me? Okay, let's move on to regional updates then. First of all, I forgot to say, we were really pleased to be able to be the hosts for the NRCS National 3-Day Soil Health for Urban and Small Scale Ag. We did a lot of garden tours and soil health assessments. We visited Mad Farmers Collective, and also we visited Kevin's farm, which was great, as well as another urban small scale farm. We were just really happy to have members of NRCS from all over the United States. And it was just a really great way to network with them and to share resources. So let's move on to the Northwest highlights for our partner shares.
Hi, thank you, Megan, for sharing about your project. I do have questions that I'll ask afterwards, but yeah, so I'm Marion Rodriguez. I'm in the Northwest area. And so here are some things that I worked on during the last month. First of all, we had an event in Tippecanoe County with the Tippecanoe working group where we talked about soil health and did soil health tabletop demonstrations at the Master Gardeners Community Garden out in Lafayette. And so we had some of the gardeners from the community garden attend and ask questions about soil health, and we had a lot of feedback and follow-up from that event. So it's a really good time to share with people about what we do. And then that also led to site visits. Doing site visits followed with some of the attendees. So I've been doing a lot of visits and soil sampling with gardeners from the area. I've gone to Montgomery County, Boone County, and Tippecanoe County, so kind of stayed in that area this past month. And also Marion County in Indianapolis. So yeah, so been seeing a lot of people gearing up for the season, and I'm happy to be part of that by providing a soil test. We, like Megan mentioned, we also participated in the NRCS training on help plan the training. On the bottom left picture, you can see a picture of Kevin, our small scale grower, one of our small scale growers in Indianapolis, showing how to use machete to open planting slots and plant spinach in there, so that to prevent causing as much disturbance. And then some of the picture on the top right was at the Tippecanoe County event, and the picture on the bottom right is from one of the site visits. I also had a booth at the Springdale Spring Fling. It's a neighborhood in Indianapolis that has a community event, and we were able to connect with some of the people in that area. And then some of the things that I have coming up is working group meetings. We have the community growers from Montgomery County are meeting tomorrow, and then we have the Fountain and Warren County working group is meeting tomorrow as well. They show in Flash, which is Friends Learning About Soil Health. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Marion. Next is Terry in the Northeast.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Terry Thyssen. I'm the Northeast Urban Soil Health Specialist. Since last time, it's been a really fulfilling month. Been getting out and doing lots of site visits and soil sampling and talking with different growers. I've had a lot of fun going to some larger scale, small scale diversified farms, and just helping with the growers understanding the soil sample results and how to implement the soil health practices. I also did the round of fundamentals of soil health training offered by CCSI. It's a good base foundational training for soil health, and I enjoyed my time with that group. St. Joe has been doing or started doing a deep dive into different topics for their growers as requested by their growers. So this last month we did a deep dive into cover crops, and we had a small group of people that were very excited about incorporating cover crops into their farming and growing practices, and it was neat to have those in-depth conversations with those growers. Kosciuszko County did a volunteer training, so we had a small group of volunteers that are excited to get out and support their working group and get out and pull those soil samples for the soil and water. And I had a lot of fun with Allen County Soil and Water hosted a women's learning circle, and we talked about soil health, and we toured Bloomingdale Garden in Fort Wayne, and then we had a dinner talking about different practices, and there's a wide range of skill sets that were there. So it was really neat to kind of have the conversations kind of bubble up organically, and having just a lot of fun with the different growers from all different skill sets. And then coming up, so next please. We've got a few events. Again, the St. Joe's been doing their deep dive. This week on Thursday is the nutrient management tool, where Kevin will be coming and talking about that tool. So if you missed it, or if you wanted to get it again, or if you know anybody that wants, that needs that information, it's both in person in South Bend and virtual. And we've also got the soil gardens of DeKalb and Steuben County. They're having their call out meeting where we'll have some educational opportunities and just talking about their soil health group. And then throughout June and July, I'm helping support Allen County Soil and Water. They're signed up with the public libraries to do conservation garden classes. So those are more geared towards home growers. But I'm excited to help them out with a couple of those times throughout June and July, help getting more conservation on the ground. And Kosciuszko County is doing soil health on the small farm tour. That will include a Friday night pizza on the farm at Hawkins Farm in North Manchester. They do pizza nights every Friday during the growing season. So if you can't make it for this farm tour, I'd recommend just going out. It's a really magical place and it's a lot of fun. I've gone ahead and popped in links to all of those events into the chat, and I really look forward to seeing some of you folks at some of these events. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. I really appreciate that, especially the links. Well done. Next, the Southwest with Casey Kennett.
Hey, hi everyone. So I'm Casey Kennett with the Southwest. Some highlights that I've done in the past month. Obviously the NRCS urban and small scale pilot training. That was really exciting to be at with all those people from all over the United States. Blooming Foods had an Earth Fest event, that picture there in the top with the soil health trailer. So I participated with that with the Southwest Soil Health team. Byron Cover Crop Field Day, I attended that as well. Nice to get out in the field and see a different variety of cover crops. That's the bottom picture there. And then I've also done a new employee site visit training with the fish group. They've had some new members join, so we did a site visit training. And then I've also done some site visits myself and soil sampling, specifically at DePaul University with their student farm. So kind of helping them out with whatever they're doing there. So that's fun as well. Some things that I'm working on and upcoming events. We are planning a small farm visit for Southwest NRCS staff and partners. We're looking at early this summer, hopefully in June. We were going to try to get that planned in May, but there's a lot of other trainings going on. So that'll be coming up, but look for that. And then I'm also partnering with the Southwest Purdue Ag Center and NRCS to support an irrigation field day, and that'll be happening in July, date to be determined, so look for that as well. And then Pathway to Water Quality, I'm working on some signage at the State Fair, but also a little plug. to promote the state fair, to get that on your radars, be thinking about that and come see us at the fair. And then the next slide, I think I've just got a bunch of pictures I wanted to share, a visual. On the left, those pictures are the DePaul student farm. At the bottom, those like individual squares, those are going to be student plots. So each student who would like a plot can have like a 4x4 square this summer to do some gardening practices in. So that's exciting. Some of the others, the rain barrel system, that was at one of the farms at the NRCS training. The allium, that's actually at the DePaul student farm. I thought that was really neat to see it in bloom like that. Josh Benison from the NRCS training, we pulled some soil at some of the farms that we were at. And then at the bottom is a picture from Bree Ollier's farm for her pole beans. I thought that was neat. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Casey. Really appreciate it. For my highlights, like all of us, we've been soil sampling a lot, so doing a lot of technical visits, site assessments, conservation planning with our NRCS friends. Really excited to get the demonstration plot, we're calling the garden, in Muscatatuck Park. Off the ground, that's the picture on the bottom right. We've got 6 soil health oriented beds. I'm sorry, 12. 6 are in the ground with deep compost method and 6 are raised. You can see it behind that crowd. Floyd County Pollinator Days was a really big success with over 2,200 attendees. So way to go, Floyd County. And then some upcoming events. We've got the Galaxy Small Business Series for farmers and home-based vendors that I'll be presenting at on the 15th. On the 19th, Rising Sun Church of Christ Community Garden Kickoff. On the 20th, I really wanted to do a big shout out for another garden event, which is from 10 to 12, we're going to be doing pollinators and perennial fruit hands-on workshops. So we're going to be planting some. But I'm really extra excited about the 21st event from 10 to 2. Lawrence County's working group, Crush, is going to be presenting a really excellent opportunity to learn from one of our veteran working groups. It's called The Importance of Beneficial Partnerships in Soil Health. It's going to be at the community garden in Bedford. We're going to be talking about ways to partner with stakeholders in order to get really great partnerships established and get big projects completed, as well as talking about the beneficial partnerships that sort of mirror our human partnerships in the soil with cover crops. So that's really fun. And then on the 23rd, we're going to be doing a work day at the Butterfly Garden redesign at the Georgetown Optimist Club in Georgetown with Floyd County Soil and Water Conservation District and Purdue Extension. So that'll be a good time. Oh yeah, and Savannah Stout, our state biologist with Pheasants and Quail Forever, is going to be talking a little bit about the role of partnerships in a diverse and healthy soil system. And so I've just got a bunch of flyers that have been shrunk and crowded in so that you can just see some of these details. I do want to direct everyone to our website and to our newsletter, Get the Dirt, so that we can get all of our links together. You can access the details of that through our newsletter. And wanted to share that our cover crop seeds are out. We're going to be distributing over 4,000 packages of buckwheat, cereal rye, crimson clover, and oats and peas mix. So please, if you're interested in getting some cover crop seeds, get in touch with your urban and small scale soil health specialist in your region. Additionally, I wanted to share that Purdue is trying to create a soil health assessment program. So you can contact Dr. Rui via Purdue about getting on top of that project and having some free soil health assessments happen on your farm. And then I'll just open it up for a couple partner shares. If anyone wants to pipe up, It is 10:30, so I understand if you all have to go. Does anyone have a share that they want to tell others about? All right, well, the resounding crickets are letting me know that you don't. We'll see you all on June 9th. From 9 to 10. Topic is to be determined. And please reach out to your regional partners if you have any questions. I see that there are some questions in the chat as well as some links. So don't forget to click on those guys if you want to do some more deep diving into a lot of the ideas. Again, just wanting to say thank you to everyone who's here. We really appreciate your patience, and we look forward to getting our hands dirty with you all at events in the future. So again, please reach out if you have any questions, and we'll see you all next month. Thank you so much.